Today we're going to take a look at 5 of human history's bloodiest battles. There are some parameters I will be using, however. For example, if this video were strictly based on casualties alone, every battle on this list would be from the First and Second World War. So I will be taking into account population sizes during the time and just overall brutality of these military engagements. Let's get into it. Number 5. The day the tide of war turned in favor of the Union during the American Civil War was also the day that saw the highest number of casualties in a single battle throughout the entire conflict. After a series of Confederate victories, General Lee led his troops north to invade Union territory. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania is where this fight occurred. Fighting raged back and forth for 3 days before the Unionists emerged triumphant. The battle is remembered as the Battle of the Civil War, immortalized by the Gettysburg Address and standing as a symbol of the Union's cause and eventual victory. Total casualties are 23,000 for the Union and another 23,000 for the Confederates. This may not seem like a lot compared to other battles, but this was with a total soldier population of about 150,000 and in only a 3-day period. Not to mention the horrifying nature of a conflict while using muskets, swords, flintlock pistols, and cannons. Number 4. The Battle of Cannae in 216 BC stands as one of, if not the largest, defeat for the ancient Romans. The Carthaginian general Hannibal, having marched his army across the Alps and defeated 2 Roman armies at Trebia and Lake Trasimene, sought to engage the Romans in a final decisive battle. The Romans concentrated their heavy infantry in the center, hoping to smash through the middle of the Carthaginian army. Hannibal, on the other hand, deployed his finest troops on the flanks of his army, anticipating the central Roman attack. As the Carthaginian center collapsed, the sides folded in on the Roman flanks. The massive legionaries in the rear ranks forced the front ranks unstoppably forward, not knowing they were enveloping themselves. Eventually, the Carthaginian cavalry swept round and closed the gap, completely surrounding the Roman army. In the close-quarters battle, the legionaries, with no way of escape, were forced to fight to the death. The result was the loss of 50,000 Roman citizens and 2 consuls, while the Carthaginian only suffered 10,000 casualties. Number 3. The bloodiest day in the history of the British Army was suffered during the initial stages of a battle that would last for several months, result in over 1 million dead, and leave the tactical situation largely unchanged. The plan was for an artillery barrage to pound the German defenses to an extent that the attacking British and French could just walk in and occupy the opposing trenches. The bombardment did not have the devastating effect expected. As soon as the soldiers emerged from the trenches, German machine gun positions opened up. Poorly coordinated artillery meant that advancing infantry was often shelled by their own supporting fire or left dangerously exposed as their creeping barrage left them unprotected. By nightfall, few of the objectives had been taken despite massive loss of life. The attack would continue in a similar vein until October that year. In just 1 day, the British lost 60,000 and the Germans only 8,000. Over the course of the whole battle, a total of over 1 million were killed. Number 2. The Battle of Leipzig represents the most decisive defeat suffered by Napoleon and the largest battle fought on European soil prior to the outbreak of World War I. Facing attacks from all directions, the French army performed remarkably well, holding attackers at bay for more than 9 hours before being overwhelmed by sheer weight of numbers. With defeat imminent, Napoleon began an orderly withdrawal across the single bridge still standing. The bridge was blown up too early, stranding 20,000 French soldiers, many of whom would drown whilst attempting to cross the river. The defeat opened the door for an Allied advance into France itself. Total casualties for Napoleon's troops ranged from 54,000 to 80,000, while Austria, Prussia, and Russia suffered 60,000 to 80,000. Number 1. The Battle of Stalingrad was quite literally the bloodiest battle in human history. The German offensive began with a devastating series of bombings from the Luftwaffe, which left much of Stalingrad in ruins. But the bombing created a highly dispensable landscape. As the army advanced, however, they found themselves caught up in brutal house-to-house fighting with the Soviets. Although they were in control of more than 90% of the city, the Wehrmacht could not extricate the remaining stubborn Soviet soldiers. The weather began to turn bitterly cold, and in November 1942 the Red Army launched a 2-pronged attack on the German 6th Army in Stalingrad. The flanks collapsed and the 6th Army was surrounded both by the Red Army and the crippling Russian winter. Starvation, cold, and sporadic Soviet attacks began to take their toll. Yet Hitler refused to allow the 6th Army to retreat. By February 1943, after a failed German attempt to break out and with all supply lines had cut, the Sixth Army was crushed. Total casualties are over 2 million, with about 1 million suffered from both sides. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, consider subscribing to our YouTube channel for more content like this.